Get lumped up tonight. Listen to Rob Ross and get rock a mine. On the only podcast that I'll hear.
Hey everybody, Rocker Mike here for the latest episode of the Rockshow. Welcome to 2025. This is our first episode of the year of the Rockshow. How you doing, Rob?
Pretty good, man.
Good.
Another year.
I know. And this is episode 208, moving right along. Okay. I got to thank you, Rob, for this one. Just so everybody knows, me and Rob, we've been doing this almost 6 years already. We got a great chemistry with each other, if you haven't figured that out. One thing that Rob will do for me sometimes is when I get stuck and I can't think of somebody to talk about, a band or an artist, Rob always comes up with a good one. And today we're talking about a band that had 21 top 40 hits between 1969 and 1975, including, I believe, 3 number ones in that period.
Yeah.
They are called Three Dog Night. I'm sure many of you have heard of them. They were very popular during those years, and they still perform today in various forms. Not
I don't think too many of them are alive, right?
A few of them have passed. Yeah, we're going to talk about all that today. Other than that, Rob, how was your New Year's and all that?
I don't remember. Passed out. Was drunk.
That means it was good.
It was good.
All right.
So good in these minutes. You know how it is.
I know. So, Three Dog Night is an American rock band. Okay, They started in 1967. They were founded by vocalist Chuck Negron, Cory Wells, and Danny Hutton. All of them sang. Okay. They added at some point after that Jimmy Greenspoon on keyboards, Joe Shermy on bass, Michael Alsop on guitar, and Floyd Sneed on drums. Like I said, they had 21 top 40 hits in that 6-year period.
That's pretty impressive.
That is. That really is.
When you look at those number 21, that's a lot, man.
Yeah, not too many people can pull that off even today. Now, one thing they were kind of known for, they did write their own music, but they also did a lot of songs written by other people that were up and coming. Okay, it wasn't that they just picked some standard established song and recorded it. In the late 60s, early 70s, you had guys like Randy Newman coming up. You had Paul Williams. Remember Paul Williams?
Yep.
He was coming up. Randy had written a song for them that was a huge hit called Mama Told Me Not to Come.
Yeah.
Paul had written an old-fashioned love song.
Yeah.
Okay. Coming Down in 3-Part Harmony. You know that song.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah, and then there was Laura Nyro, Hoyt Axton. Hoyt had written Joy to the World, which was one of their biggest hits, and Never Been to Spain. That was another song.
Never Been to Spain. It's one of my favorite songs of all time.
Is it really?
That's in my top 10 of greatest songs of all time.
Wow. No wonder you wanted to do this song. No wonder you wanted to cover this band.
You know what it is? That's the kind of song that could have come out. It could come out today and it would be a hit. It's
timeless.
Like you can't tell when it was done because it's like one of those, it's fantastic. And like the whole thing, it's a great song.
Yeah. I mean, no doubt. I mean, there's so many of their songs are just timeless. That's why they still even play today.
Yeah.
So, one thing that people always want to know when it comes to Three Dog Night is how they come up with their name. Now, basically, it was the girlfriend of Danny Hutton. Her name was June Fairchild. Now, you might remember her in the Cheech and Chong movie Up in Smoke, the girl that snorts the Ajax. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That
was classic.
Funny.
She came up with the name. She was reading a book about Aboriginal Australian natives, and they supposedly would sleep when it was cold. They would sleep with their pets, their dogs, and this is out in the the desert where they live. And when it was really cold, it would might be a 2-dog night. okay, that they would sleep with. But if it was really, really cold, it was a 3-dog night.
3-dog night.
Yeah, so that's how that name came up. Some people say it's not true, but that's pretty much the general consensus on how that happened. So the three vocalists, Hutton, okay, Negron and Wells, landed a contract with Dunhill Records. Now I have to mention that Hutton himself, Daniel Hutton, actually got started with Hanna-Barbera Records.
I saw that Hanna-Barbera record. I didn't even realize they had a record company.
Well, I think it might have been for music related to the cartoons. I'm not sure. Okay, but I'd have to look into that. But definitely he bounced from Hanna-Barbera Records to Dunhill Records, okay, in 1967 with this new band. And they originally were called Redwood, all right? And they made some recordings with Brian Wilson while the Beach Boys were working on the album Wild Honey, which is a very interesting Beach Boys album. Redwood was briefly poised to be one of the first artists signed to the Beach Boys label Brother Records. But according to Mike Love of the Beach Boys, Brian had them in the studio for several days, and he was really funny. They didn't meet up to his expectations. They'd go in, they wouldn't sing well enough for him. He said, but then they went off to make billions. So it was, I guess it just didn't work out with the Beach Boys. Brian Wilson attempted to produce an album for Redwood, but after the recording of 3 songs, including Time to Get Alone and Darlin', the whole thing was stopped by the bandmates who wanted Brian to focus on the Beach Boys' contractual obligations. So he pulled out of producing that. According to Chuck Negron, due to the commercial failure of Smiley Smile by the Beach Boys, Wilson really kind of bailed on the band. Okay, that's what he says. Okay, he just wasn't as committed as he was when he started. And the other Beach Boys wanted Brian's songwriting skills to come up with a new record, so they really just couldn't work it all out at the same time. Shortly after abandoning the name Redwood in 1968, the 3 singers hired a group of backing musicians: Ron Morgan on guitar, Floyd Sneed on drums, Joe Shermy from the Cory Wells Blues Band on bass, and Jimmy Greenspoon on keyboards. And that's when they took the name 3-Dog Night. Okay. There's actually an interesting connection because Ron Morgan on guitar would leave after they recorded their first album and join the Electric Prunes, which are one of the greatest 60s garage rock bands ever. They had the song I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night. I mean, that's a classic. Michael Alsop was quickly recruited to replace Morgan on guitar. Okay, and he would be with them for a long time. 3-Dog Night made its official debut live in 1968 at the Whiskey A Go-Go in California. There was a 5 p.m. press party hosted by Dunhill Records. They were still in the process of making their first album, the self-titled 3-Dog Night, when they heard the favorable reactions from the hypercritical audience. In other words, they were still really recording this first record, and now they're at the Whiskey at their first show playing these songs, and everybody's into it. Everybody's really enjoying the music. So that was a big boost for them. The album 3-Dog Night was a success with its hit songs Nobody, Try a Little Tenderness, and the song One. One is the loneliest number.
Yeah, that's another great song.
That's another classic, yeah. And just on those 3 songs, they became known as a major live act to catch. Okay, they were being known as a live band.
I hear that song all the time because I'm an international. You know how that is.
Yeah. Molly's old playlist has it on there, I think.
So I'm always listening to 3-Dog Night. Like those songs come up, and it's like, oh wow, man. But this band, man, they went Whiskey A Go-Go down. That was the first act, right? That
was their first show, and it was while they were recording the first album, and they would, immediately they were getting great reactions. So,
so the album wasn't even out yet, so they just played live and
no,
okay,
yeah. So Between 1969 and 1972, they had 13 songs in a row that reached the top 10 on the Canadian charts. They were big there too. Okay. And in December 1972, they were asked to host and perform on the very first Dick Clark's New Year's Eve special, New Year Rockin' Eve. Okay, that is still carried on today, even though Dick is no longer with us.
Yeah, now it's Brian.
But they were on the very first episode in 1972. It was actually called New Year's Rockin' Eve, Three Dog Nights New Year's Rockin' Eve on NBC. Okay,
that must have been good.
That was. I think I've seen clips of that. Actually, I'm sure I watched it as a kid because my family was always watching Dick Clark on New Year's. Everybody did.
I think that was like pretty much the mainstream to watch him every year.
Well, it's interesting. He had taken over for Guy Lombardo. Okay. Guy Lombardo had for decades had a famous New Year's Eve show. He was more of just a singer, Italian singer and band leader. Actually, he was a band leader. Excuse me. Once he hung it up, Dick Clark kind of took over the New Year's Eve spot for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
I mean, until he had his stroke, and even then they wheeled him out when he wasn't even looking good anymore.
Yeah, it was
that was kind of a disgrace. I never liked seeing that.
That was rough what they did, wheeling him out there.
It was. I mean, but for decades, just so everybody, any younger listeners don't know, seeing Dick Clark on the roof of the building, freezing his ass off with his headphones on, was part of New Year's Eve. It was,
So funny, that was on NBC. Now it's on ABC.
Yeah, right. Originally it was on NBC, and then it switched over to ABC at some point. I think in the 80s, maybe. I'm trying to remember. But so in 1973. Three Dog Night filed a $6 million lawsuit against their former booking agent, American Talent International, also known as ATI. It was for continuing to advertise in the media that the band was with their agency, when in fact they had signed up with the famous William Morris agency in October of 1972. Other damages were sought due to ATI taking deposits for booking Three Dog Night, whom they no longer represented.
Oh man, that's messed up.
That's messed up, right? Just saying that they still represented them and getting booking money. So Joe Shermy would leave the band in early 1973 due to what was said problems arising that were unresolvable. Okay, he was replaced by Jack Ryland, and shortly thereafter, and the band then became an 8-piece. Okay, with the inclusion of former Blues Image member Skip Conte as a second keyboardist in late 73. In late 74, Alsop and Sneed left to form a new band called SS Fools with Shermy and Bobby Kimball, later of the band Toto. New guitarist James Smitty Smith and drummer Mickey McKeel were recruited. But by 1975, Smith had been replaced by Al Siner from Rufus and the American Breed, and Ryland by Rufus bassist Dennis Belfield. Mickey McKeel would go on to co-star as Turkey, the drummer of Captain Cool and the Kongs, in the children's television series The Croft Superstar Show.
I don't even remember that.
I remember that. That was the Croft Superstar Show. They would have all the Croft. They'd have a couple of the Crofts, Sid and Marty Croft shows like Land of the Lost, and all that. And in between, they would have music. And there was a Croft Superstar band called Captain Cool and the Kongs. And then for a while, the Bay City Rollers actually hosted the show.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. If you ever have a chance on YouTube to check those out, that's some cool shit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, some very cool shit. That was on Saturday mornings on Channel 4, NBC. I remember that. Now, for the albums Cyan, Hard Labor, and Coming Down Your Way, Hutton was absent from many of these recording sessions because he had a bad coke problem, okay, and a bad alcohol problem, okay. He was kind of hanging out with Harry Nilsson a little bit too much, who we should do a show on Harry, I think, at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He was a major lumpologist, absolutely.
And Brian Williams.
Yes. Brian Wilson also was hanging out with Hutton, and he really just couldn't keep it together at this period.
They were getting lumped up. I can see.
Yeah. He got replaced during that period by a guy named Jay Gruska. Now, hours before the first concert of their 1975 tour, Chuck Negron was arrested for the possession of narcotics, but was soon released on a $10,000 bond. This was becoming a band problem, obviously. Okay.
$10,000 at that time, that's a lot of freaking money.
It's probably $100,000 now.
Yeah,
easily. Now, Coming Down Your Way, the album, was released in May 1975, but really didn't sell too well in the United States. Likely that was due to poor promotion on account of the band's recently switched label, ABC, and the growing popularity of disco music. The music world was changing a little bit. Disappointed by this, the band decided Till the World Ends would be the only single released from the album, which ended up being the group's last Billboard Hot 100 Top 40 hit.
Wow.
So even with an album that wasn't selling well, they still managed to get a top 40 single in the charts.
Yeah, that's good.
In a changing music scene and everything like that. So that's pretty good. It's interesting about ABC. I don't know if this had anything to do with it. ABC was a label, but they also were a distributor. And I remember reading one time that the Ramones album, the first one, came out in early '76. They had problems distributing that album.
Oh shit!
And it was Sire, but it was on ABC for distributing. So there was something fucked up about ABC Records. I think they were like crooked or something. I'm not sure, but I just think there was something going on there in those years. Jay Gruska toured with the band, the guy that replaced Hutton, to promote their last album, American Pastime, which was released in March of '76. Still, the album, again, really did not sell well like the last one, for basically the same reasons. However, the only single released off that album was called Everybody's a Masterpiece, and it became like an adult contemporary hit, meaning like it was like a light FM type thing. Another former Rufus band member, Ron Stocker, was recruited as a second keyboardist after Conti left in the first half of '76. The group played their final show at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles on July 26, 1976. In '79, NBC reported that the band's accountant was shot in the arm and paralyzed in what the police believe was a mob dispute over Three Dog Night. Joe Olua, a reported mob enforcer from New York, was investigated as being involved. I kind of remember Chuck Negron coming on. Did he come on Howard Stern, talk about that years ago? Yeah.
They were probably buying drugs and somebody didn't pay the fucking either.
Probably, yeah. And there was something. They were a little deeper than that. It wasn't just drugs. I think there was other things going on.
Oh yeah.
Now in '81, Three Dog Night got back together, and they released a ska-inspired album called "It's a Jungle" in 1983 on the Small Passport Records label, which garnered some airplay on the new wave circuit. The EP failed to sell after Passport went bankrupt, but the reunion featured all of the original members except Joe Shermy, who was succeeded by future Rick Springfield bassist Mike Seifert until 1982, and then by Richard Grossman, who was featured on It's a Jungle and stayed until 1984. Two guitarists, Paul Kingery and Steve Ezzo, occasionally played with the band, filling in for Alsop on dates he was not able to make between 1982 and 1984. Ezzo replaced Alsop altogether when he left the band in late '84 to take care of some personal and family matters. Sneed was let go from the band at the same time. Also in late '84, keyboardist David Blufeld filled in for Greenspoon, who was ill. But Blufeld was replaced in 1985 by Rick Cerati, formerly of the band Poco, and later played with Whitesnake, of all bands. Yeah. Okay. And the band hit the road with a revised lineup that included Cerati, Steve Ezzo, bassist Scott Manzo, and drummer Mike Keeley. The band toured all through 1985, but Cerati left to pursue other offers and Greenspoon rejoined the band with Negron in late 1985 and were both back touring with the group. And I just got to throw in there, I think it takes a lot of balls to go from being, a rock band to doing a ska album.
That's freaking crazy.
The only other band I could think of that pulled off something similar was Foghat. Okay, they went from being, one of the best hard rock bands of the early 70s to kind of going like almost new wave. Right? And I actually like some of the new wave stuff they did, but they lost a lot of fans when they did that. So I imagine that happened a little bit with Three Dog Night. Now, by December 1985, Chuck Negron was let go from the band because he really got back into drugs again. And the group continued with Wells and Hutton fronting the band, and Paul Kingery was brought back on guitar to cover Chuck's vocal harmonies. And that's another thing too, is really these guys could all sing, no matter who they brought in. They were all
great. Yeah, they were all great singers.
And the harmonies of Three Dog Night are really what they're known for. In 1986, their song "In My Heart" was actually in the movie Robotech.
Yeah, the cartoon.
Yeah, right. Now, more changes in personnel occurred after that when guitarist T.J. Parker and vocalist and bassist Gary Moon replaced Kingery and Manzo in 1988, and then were replaced themselves by Mike Cuneo and Richard Campbell during 1989. Alsop returned to the group to replace Cuneo in the spring of 91, but Negron entered drug rehab again, but he did not return to the band. Okay. Pat Bortz succeeded Keeley as drummer in 1993. And in 1993, Three Dog Night performed for the Family Channel show Spotlight on Country, filmed in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Kingery returned to the band as their bass player in 1996 following Campbell's departure. Sadly, Jack Ryland, who was born in 1950, and he was the bassist from 73 to 75, died November 13, 1996, 2 days before his 46th birthday. Original bassist Joe Shermy passed away on March 26, 2002. In May of 2002, the band released Three Dog Night with the London Symphony Orchestra.
That's a good album.
And that was a time when, bands were starting to play with these symphonies. Remember Metallica did it?
Yeah, that was great.
And other, it was like a thing for a couple of years to play with a big symphony. The album was recorded in LA and in London at Abbey Road Studios and includes two new songs, one called Overground and another song called Sault Ste. Marie. They also released a DVD of that, that symphony performance, titled Three Dog Night Live with the Tennessee Symphony Orchestra. That was in May of 2002. In the summer of 2004, 80s bassist Scott Manzo returned briefly to fill in for Paul Kingery. In October 2004, they released the 35th anniversary hits collection featuring the London Symphony Orchestra. The album includes live versions of Eli's Coming, Brickyard Blues, Try a Little Tenderness, and Family of Man. In August of 2008, they released Three Dog Night Greatest Hits Live, a compilation of previously unissued live recordings from concerts in Frankfurt, Germany, and Edmonton, London, in 72 and 73. On October 24, 2009, they released three new songs, Heart of Blues, Prayer of the Children, and Two Lights in the Nighttime. They issued two new songs on their 35th anniversary hits collection featuring the London Symphony Orchestra. Now, in 2012, the summer of that year, guitarist Alsop was hospitalized for an intestinal disorder, forcing Kingery to move back to guitar while Danny's son Timothy Hutton moved in to play bass. This happened again during the summer of 2015 when Alsop was forced to miss some shows. On March 11, 2015, Jimmy Greenspoon passed away from cancer at the age of 67. His place at the keyboards was taken by Eddie Reasoner, who had substituted for him when he took ill in mid-2014. On October 21st, 2015, Cory Wells died at his home in Dunkirk, New York, at the age of 74. In November 2015, the band announced that singer David Morgan would be joining them on the road. He was a former member of the Association. Okay, remember the song Windy?
Yeah.
In April 2017, Howard LaRavia replaced Eddie Reasoner on keyboards, and he was formerly of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. When Three Dog Night returned to touring again in August of 2021 after the pandemic, it was without Michael Alsop, who was replaced with Tim Hutton on bass. Paul Kingery switched back to guitar. Alsop is still a member, technically, of Three Dog Night, but is now not touring with the band. He's not well enough to do that.
Yeah.
Danny Hutton has stated during concert appearances that Three Dog Night is working on a new album, and before performing their new song, Prayer of the Children. They're basically still around. Okay. Yeah. Probably playing places like Westbury out on Long Island.
Oh, yeah.
Other old oldies places. An amazing band with a lot of members that passed through that band.
There was a lot of members, man.
If you just look at Wikipedia and you look at all the members, it's a lot. But altogether, they had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 studio albums and several live albums. Okay. They were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in the year 2000. They are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, believe it or not.
They'll probably make it next year.
I don't know. Have they ever been nominated?
I don't know, but they should be in the Rock and Roll Fame. But you know what the problem is? Nobody's left. Like, it's really like a new group.
Yeah, it's true.
Because but you know what the thing with that group? No matter who they changed, they always sounded good, and they kept to the same kind of
the same kind of vocal, vocal harmonies and things like that, But I've never seen them. I would check them out. If they come back.
Yeah, they always play like those small little town, like they play in Yonkers, they play up there like Westbury,
casinos and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, like the Kings Theater in I think in 100 something Street. That's what they play now.
Oh, really? Okay.
And pretty much they sell out.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's interesting now in the world today of music is, I think it was a couple of years ago that old-time oldie music actually outsold new music.
Yeah.
I mean, people are tired, I think, of this like fake manufactured shit that's out there now, and they want to hear real music, even if it's like one member in the band. I mean, I'm very good friends with Lala Brooks from the Crystals, and I go to a lot of these oldie shows, and you see young people there. You see, this is spotlighting music of the 50s, 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of young people there that weren't even born.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cool, So that's it today. Three Dog Night. We covered that quick.
Great band. And coming up this year, probably we're gonna do we'll probably do the Black History, right? You got 2 artists this year. You know who you're gonna do?
Yeah. I'm gonna pull that up right now. Give me a second. Okay. For February Black History Month, we always do a special 2 shows. We're going to be talking about the history of Stax Records.
Okay.
Isaac Hayes and all those great Booker T and the MGs, all those great acts that put out, the label that put out such great music that influenced everything. And it's funny, we recently interviewed Junior Marvin from the Bob Marley and the Wailers. He brought up Stax Records as a major influence to him. I mean, you can't overemphasize Stax. The other band we're going to talk about you might not think of them as a black band, but they really are, and that's Thin Lizzy. Okay, Phil Lynott was probably the most famous Black Irishman you ever heard.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I mean, he was half black. He was half black, but it counts. And I've been wanting to do a show on Thin Lizzy for a long time, and I think it's important to emphasize their contribution into rock and roll.
What are we doing in March?
March, well, March is big for St. Patty's, and we're going to do a special show on the history of the Pogues.
Yes,
one of my favorite bands. We'll get into Shane MacGowan and all the history. The other Spider and the other guys in the band are crazy. They're back together. They're working on a new album. I'm not sure when it's coming out this year, but I heard it is coming out. We did that great interview last year with author Richard Walls that wrote the book about Shane MacGowan. So we'll get into that. In April, we've got a special show on the Jay Giles Band. Okay. And in May, we're going to be talking about the legendary Tom Waits.
Ooh.
All right. So that's what we got coming up over the next few months. I'll be coming up with some other topics for the rest of the year. I think we're pretty full with our schedule.
Yeah, we're pretty full. Then we'll probably do a bunch of percent shows.
Yeah. The rock, I mean, the rock show really was the original show. And in March, we'll be celebrating 6 years of that. And it parlayed into the Conspiracy 420, the Rocker Mike and Rob Presents interview show, the Son of Sam Chronicles, and other things we've done. It's really been a great ride with you, Rob.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna download some of those shows that were on that other TV show that we were doing and upload it to the YouTube channel. See what happens.
Yeah, you're talking about the Truth Behind the Crime. We did a couple of true crime stuff. We kind of got away from that a little bit for now. We may get back into it at some point, but we just really want to concentrate on the interviews and the rock show. And stuff.
I think those are the best thing. The interviews are definitely good because we get a lot of interesting people, and there's a lot of people that want to go out there and voice their opinion and talk about the stuff, which is good.
Right.
It's that we bring the profile, like we've got this platform to let people come here and talk. That they might not be too well known, but after they talk to us, they're pretty well known.
Oh yeah, we've parlayed people into being somewhat get some notoriety.
Yeah.
One thing that we're hoping to start probably by the time this show gets aired in January is a roundtable type show. We'll be discussing different things, politics, but not just politics, all kinds of issues with Eric Moore and Knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. Two famous international bar alumni.
Yeah.
That we definitely appreciate them coming on and voicing their opinions. That's going to be called I Am Right, that show. Right. And hopefully we have that started in January of 2025.
Yeah, that should be good.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for watching the episode 208 of The Rock Show, the band Three Dog Night. And we'll be back next month with another rock show. Keep checking out Getting Lumped Up, the network we have here on YouTube. And, of course, it's on audio podcasts like Pandora.
Everywhere.
iTunes. Stuff
Amazon, everywhere. It's on every...
Stuff I never even heard of. I see us popping up.
Yeah. And it's funny, It's funny when it's like other people that listen to us. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we'll get messages from people in Thailand saying, listen to us. Stuff. That's kind of cool.
It's crazy.
yeah. All right, Rob. So what do we say at the end of every episode?
We don't get drunk.
We get lumped up.
Happy New Year, and we'll see you next time.
See you soon. Take care, people.
Get lumped up tonight. Listen to Rob Rossi and Rockamine on the only podcast that I'll hear. That won't make me wanna rip off my